Welcome back. While we're talking to Hatim, we went on that break, but Hatim, just hold on. Let's get to Emeka, who joins us now via telephone. Emeka, you were talking about the situation in the north and what's being done, but let's add this bit about the funding part, both from the local partners and the international partners. What has it been like in terms of utilization and accountability? Okay, we'll hope to get Emeka back as the conversation continues. Oluseyi, so Hatim was talking about where they are now and going forward in general terms. But do you think we are on course to see relief come the way of those who are going through this traumatic times?
Well, I think at this time we want to be optimistic, and we want to, based on the activities that we're seeing from all actors at this time. Certainly there's a lot that still needs to be done, especially in reaching those places that security has prevented aid workers in being able to access. But also, we're also seeing the challenge of the aid workers also being kidnapped. We're more or less in
one was killed a few months ago.
One was killed a few months ago. So we're in a very dire situation. But then amidst all of that, because of the kind of work that we do, we're not meant to give up. We want to face the situation head on. And again, it's important to call on all stakeholders, those who's got the resources to support, to please, pitch in more money.
But is it not overwhelming? I mean, 7.7 million, and it looks as if it's increasing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is it not overwhelming?
It's actually overwhelming, but then someone has to go do the job, because we need to find a way of getting these individuals back to their normal lives. And the statistics I quoted the other time was from the OCHA dashboard, which provides us a gap information on what's happening per time. Those statistics are from October, I think January to December or something. And this has been for 10 years, like I've been saying. So we need to find a way of ensuring that there's peace in that region. Otherwise, if we keep having that crisis, then the number keeps increasing. And as much as the number is increasing, there's a need for more resources to do this work. Understanding that, we still need resources for other developmental issues, like fixing our electricity, fixing our education system, fixing our health, sector. So government itself has a daunting challenge at this time, fixing crises and fixing normal human development issues that we found ourselves, already.
You say that the number is increasing, but that is surprising to me, at least, because we hear that places which were strongholds of Boko Haram have been taken back by government, which means that those people should now be in your care and not being threatened by Boko Haram. So the number should actually be reducing the more places our forces take back from Boko Haram, don't you think?
But recall that, we reports, you also have it that virtually every week or every other week there are crises. This has been on, again, let's get this straight very well, for 10 years. You've been witnessing the same trend for 10 years, and it's been reported as the most severe crisis that we have in the world at this time. And, nothing says that tomorrow we still won't have, a repeat of, the crisis. So rather than the numbers going down, it would keep going up, because, that crisis is still happening per time.
Hatim, permit me to dare ask this question. Is there any challenge coming from the internally displaced persons themselves?
Challenges from the internally displaced persons themselves. What we're trying to do is to understand what they want. There is a basic needs that we all understand as human beings, which is having a shelter, having access to water, having access to food, and then being able to live in a secure environment. But there is also the other part of the other side of needs that we are trying to understand hand in hand with those communities and with the internally displaced personnel, which is what's next for them. And in most of the surveys, the answers back that they want to go back to their lives. They want to have a normal life being restored again. This is most of the time is overwhelming. Also trying to understand what they had been through. There is not a single family without a loss, without tough times that they had been through, and they need to go over these crises. There is psychological support which is being provided, social support, trying to empower them, because most of them, for example, if we are talking about farmers, they lost their lands. If we are talking about fishermen, they lost access to exercise their profession. And if they were traders, they cannot also do that. So what we are trying to do is to move from those dependent society and to empower them by finding alternative ways of helping. And instead of distributing food directly, let's go for cash for food. So they feel that they have the power to decide what kind of food that they can purchase and what kind of food they want to have on their table. There is also engagement of these communities in what we are doing and what we are trying to help them. As my colleagues were mentioning, needs are huge and the numbers are increasing. It's a real challenge, but we are getting by the day, and it is difficult sometimes to stand in front of those families and not knowing what else you can provide. For me, it had been one of the most difficult situations when I'm in the IDP camps and discuss with them, and then I don't know what else I can provide because there is little to do.
We're winding down now, so Oluseyi, just look at it from the side. Hussein sent in a message, let me just read it. It says, humanitarian efforts in Nigeria, especially in Borno, Adama, and Yobe, are no longer an in-house arrangement, but a cartel-like arrangement, where residents are rejected for a powerful Abuja Lagos Axis NGO syndicate that subcontracts the work to local NGOs at peanuts.
Well, while I do not have the full details to that, we should also understand how things work. If high NGO, for instance, because again, I don't want to separate. We're all working to ensure that lives, are given back to those people. But if I'm a non-profit that is bigger and has, the resources to give out, my governance model is very high, and my governance requirements in terms of the use of that funds becomes very high. So if I'm going to subcontract this process to you, because again, international NGOs can't do it alone, multinationals can't do it alone. We all have to come together as a team to respond to the issue. So if I'm going to ask you to do this, then you have to send me a proposal. And in that proposal, you tell me how you spend the money, you give me your governance model, so that accountability becomes something, we can all share and own. So we don't know the details, but I would consciously assume
something like that exists. Let me bring Emmanuel Semeka, that you round up with this answer to this question that has been put forward. Hussein's statement. He says the local NGOs are subcontracted this task of reaching out to the locals who have been displaced at pittance. So the humanitarian thing there is more like targeted, or the target NGOs are those based in Lagos and Abuja who now use the local NGOs with tokens to do the job. So at the end of the day, the people are not effectively catered for. Do you agree with that?
No. I think the perspective is completely wrong. What you have is that, one, humanitarian response in Nigeria is new. And therefore, you had at the outset of the response, far back as 2014, 2015, very few national NGOs that were involved with development, who had little or just a little experience in humanitarian response. So you had capacity issue. So all the funding actually went to the UN and the international NGOs 100%. And by extension, the UN, decided to use the national NGO in order to build, one, capacity, two, to ensure sustainability of the response, and of course, going forward, knowing fully well that it will take a long time to, revert back to normalcy and, of course, restore livelihood and, ensure that the people, have their dignity at the end of the day. But it's not the same with international NGOs, who I can tell you 100% have their own arrangement, internally. They use little or no in national NGOs. Most of their interventions are done directly. Very few of them, work with national NGOs. But like I have always said, I know you're winding down. I've always said that, one, as long as the national NGOs spread across the length and breadth of the Northeast or wherever they are in Nigeria, providing the little support they can with their meager or non-available funds, it is practically impossible to, develop or have homegrown solutions to this humanitarian response. It is critical, it is important, it is strategic, and it will end up being very sustainable if and when national NGOs are at the forefront. So what do we recommend? We're recommending, like what the UN, WFP is doing, FAO is doing. They are using national NGOs, mentoring them, building their capacity. For me and for us out here, these are the agencies that have contributed immensely to the capacity development of the national NGOs within the humanitarian spectrum. If the other international NGOs can adopt this model, I tell you the truth, then the response, the quality of response, and the sustainability of this response will be, it would be really, really something that we can talk about in the future and be proud of.
All right, thank you very much. Emmanuel, thank you very much. We've been speaking to the Country Director, Social Welfare Network Initiative, Emmanuel Osemeka, who joined us online. We had Oyebisi Oluseyi, Network of Nigerian NGOs, Executive Director, and Gada Hatim, Country Representative, Solidarities International, who joined us from our Abuja studios. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for sharing your thoughts. Sunrise will be back in a moment. Please don't go away.